welcome back. So in the last video we got the gas processing up and running, which was a great start, but what we are now going to do is to start to connect that up to the furnace, because that's going to allow us to more sustainably do our smelting, and we're also going to finish the rest of the setup because there's a bit here that we haven't finished with yet. So we will need to do something with a number of other gases, but we're going to need steel to make more tanks, and to make more steel we need the furnace to be working a bit better, so we need to be able to vent that. So I'm going to start with a reasonably basic setup for the furnace. We're going to use a volume pump, because we can use that to rapidly suck the gas out of the furnace at the end of a smelt. And I'm also going to use a pressure regulator, which we're going to use to control the flow of fuel in. We're going to need a lot more pipes, even though I think we still have some left over in here, because we're going to need to get hot gas all the way down there and round to cool it and then into the waste tank, and we're also going to need to get fuel from the fuel mixer down there all the way over to here. So let's get started. So first thing to do, let's just double check where we've got the furnace set up, which is the input and which is the output. So the output is that one and the input is that one. There is also an output too, that's for if you melt ice in it and there's any liquid. I'm not proposing to do that at this stage, so I think we'll leave that alone. We're just going to connect the volume pump to the output, and we're going to connect the pressure regulator to the input. Now we want to do this as close as possible to the actual furnace itself, because both of these will work better with a shorter run of pipes. Reminder there that I will need to do something about my carbon dioxide filters soon. So I'm going to put the volume pump
power critical
here. I'm going to have to change the batteries in a minute, aren't I, as well? The problem with putting it here is it's not very accessible for us to turn it on and off. I'm just wondering whether actually I might just drop it one. I think that might be slightly easier to get at. Let's just go and change out the suit battery before we're in the dark. That's never good. And then let's see if we can get the pressure regulator. Perhaps we'll do that on the input side. Now the pressure regulator, you can't connect it directly, but I really want to get it just one block away. The only thing is it's actually quite hard to, whoops, press the wrong one. I always get the wrong buttons for spinning it, but what I'm trying to do is to, there we go, set it up like that. So although there's a bar in the way there, in theory it's at least kind of possible to see what we're doing. Okay, let's connect up. So let's start with a piece of pipe on there. Doesn't look quite so silly when it's hanging in midair. Okay, not perfect, but that's not too bad in terms of either of those setups. Whoops. So I'm just plonking some pipes down here because I know that we're going to need to move this in that direction. And we're also going to need to be able to connect some wires to those two, so let's just get that done now. Into there. And there we go. Okay, it's not the most convenient. I think we might put in couple more frames so it's a bit easier to access, and we'll need more iron for that. Luckily, we have plenty. What I'm going to do is put together a few more frames which we can build around the furnace, and then that'll give us a bit more room to work. A little bit easier to see what's going on. So I think one more. And we should have still got some iron. Do we have iron sheets left? Yes, we do. We have 4. Not quite enough, but nearly. So I'm going to just build some more floor basically along here. Whoops, down there. And I'm going to put one there and one there, because I think that's just going to make it a little bit easier to work. So let's... And we're going to need one more iron sheet, but at least now we can run around there and... Oh, I clicked the button, but it didn't do it. So now I've still got a spare iron sheet. One day I'll have no spare iron sheets. There we go. Right, okay. Probably end up having to move this tool manufactory as well as part of doing this, but at least now we can start to see what's going on. Now, what I think I will do is actually drop that pipe a bit, because it's kind of in the way there. So let's just drop it down to ground level. We're going to put some floor grating down in a bit, so these won't be quite such an obstacle, but it kind of makes sense to hook everything up first. You'll remember we've also got a pipe here that we've set up for cooling the fridge. Later on we might actually feed that with some refrigerant. However, for now, let's concentrate on what we're doing. So we need to get the hot dirty gas needs to end up cooled down and over at that green tank, all connected into the green pipe network. So I think what we'll do is I'll lay this pipe in now, so that as we build more frames for additional solar power, these are just embedded where we need them. Right, there we go. And then what we need to do is to now get the gas to come out, and we're going to need to do something to cool it down before we connect it to that network. We are going to need more space, so I'm going to build some more frames. While that's building, let's just grab those spare cable coils. And we are going to need some of those, so we'll use up that last iron sheet if it kills me. Okay, let's have a look and see how much space this is going to give us. I think 2 or 3 more. Probably it's done enough by now. We'll just stop at whatever number it's done. Oh, it's run out of iron anyway, so always good. We'll use the last 3G to make some iron sheets. So in the end we're going to put another one up here, so that we can extend the solar panels. We might as well just drop that in now. Right, let's stack those, just weld them up. Actually, I'm going to weld up that bottom one because it's going to be difficult to get at. Okay, and guess what? We've got the wrong number of iron sheets again. Right, so more iron. Amazing. The right number. Okay, good. So now what we're going to have to do is come up with some sort of arrangement to cool the gas down that comes out of here, because it's likely to be very hot. I mean, what's in there at the moment will have cooled down because it's been like that for, I don't know, probably a week of game time. But you'll see it's still 342 Kelvin, which is still rather hotter than we'd like. Definitely not breathable. So what we'll need is some sort of a tank and some radiators, which unfortunately means more iron, and we're going to need pipes to connect that. So let's see what we can make. So I said iron, but I meant steel. What we don't have, I don't think is enough, and I definitely don't want an insulated tank. That is literally the last thing I want to keep the heat in. Tank, hello. I don't know why TA doesn't find tank, it only finds tank insulated. That's just weird. Okay, so we've nearly got enough steel in there. I think we've got some steel not in there. In the electronics printer, yes. Now what I can see though, before I use it all, is look, we're down to 2 bars of battery here. So this is gradually creeping down. We need more charging capacity, I think, now. So I am going to build one solar panel. And then whatever steel is left over we'll use to hopefully make a tank and some radiators. So let's get one solar panel building. I guess while that's running we may as well make some more pipes over here, since we never seem to be able to have enough. Once we can reliably start to make materials in the furnace, then we can start to do much more clever things, and we can start to use pipe analyzers and stuff to actually measure what's going on. So it's important. Okay, so we put that in there, and let's just get another tank making. Just one. And then we'll go for some radiators, which will allow us to balance the heat out of the system. We're going to take advantage of the fact that we've got a cold atmosphere on Mars. Obviously if you're on a hot planet you have to be a bit more creative with the cooling, but we've got a cold thin atmosphere, so let's use it. I'm going to use a full-size tank. Sometimes you can get away with using a portable tank in there, but it is a little bit risky. They do tend to blow up because they can't take anything like the level of pressure, and hot gas can be quite high pressure. So I'm not going to risk that. We're going to put down a proper tank. You'll see I'm building quite a few radiators. I don't want to use all the steel, but I think we'll stop there and see how this looks. Okay, so we're going to put a tank over here for the tank over here for the hot gas. Perhaps what we'll do is we'll put it up this end, and let's get the other solar panel up. That way round. That's ready to go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run the hot pipe here in there. I'll route this fuel pipe around the back or something in a minute. We'll run the hot pipe in here, and then we'll have a bunch of radiators along this section. And then we'll have a valve which initially we'll make manual, but later on maybe we'll automate. which we can use so that when we know the temperature in here is cooled enough, we can introduce it to the main waste gas system. That way we can isolate the very hot gas coming out of the furnace at 1000 degrees sometimes from the gas that we might want to ultimately purify and introduce into our hab for breathing. Otherwise we're going to kill the plants, we're probably going to kill ourselves. Getting stuck on everything now. Right, 4 radiators. It's certainly not going to be enough, but it'll get us started. So let's connect this. I'm just being super careful I connect the right one because I haven't done any colour coding on this yet. So at this stage I'm just going to do a really simple arrangement of a straight pipe, and I'm going to put these straight on the top, and then we'll leave space for a valve, and then we will just run this along here. And I miscounted, so there shouldn't have been a curve there, there should have been another straight. Okay, so we're definitely going to need to be able to tell the difference between these, so let's get some spray cans done. So we're going to use pink for hot, and we're going to use orange for fuel, and we're going to use khaki obviously for waste. So this is the input, so this will be fuel.
Hunger caution.
We're going to have to take a food break in a moment. There we go, so you can start to see as we get more complexity in these pipes why it is so important to make sure that we're really clear what each of these is for. Now this is the bit I should have done before I put the radiators on. It is possible to find the right place, but it's very fiddly. Okay, so no, this is too fiddly. I'm just going to remove the radiators. And I've still managed to spray them. Oh. Right.
Filter low.
It's all going wrong now, isn't it? Filter low, food low. Okay, so we're going to put the valve there, so I'm going to spray these up in khaki, and we're going to connect that there in a minute. Let's flick that off. We do need to have some more carbon dioxide filters on hand, because actually looking at the state of the suit, we've got 2 empties and 1 it's on 69%. We really don't want to run out of that. So let's just make some of those. And the used ones I'm just going to dump somewhere. We'll build a recycler in a bit, which will allow us to reclaim some raw materials. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the order, and I'm going to do that so it finishes that one before it starts using a new one. Then I'm going to do that, and those 2 are the expended ones, which I'll be tidy and put in there, rather than just throwing them away. Good, okay, so we probably don't need any more pink. We will need some more of the other 2. We'll put that in there for now. Okay, so we still need to connect the fuel, and we also need to connect the hot gas. So we're just going to need a load more pipes, basically, and a valve. Although we've got some valves, haven't we? So let's save some resources. I'll just start some pipes producing in there. How much iron's left in this machine? Okay, that's going to make 54 pipes, which I think is probably about enough. Let's just get that other solar panel up and running. We've missed the sun for today, but we may as well have it working tomorrow. It's always good to have a few things on the go so that you've got a job you can do while something else is running. Let's get some heavy cable. basically not generating anything now, so we'll just whip that off there, just because I don't have any more green spray paint and I can't be bothered to make any more for a minute. That's probably enough. And then we'll put that on there, that on there. There we go, look at that, perfect. Okay, that's good. So we can use those for the fuel in a minute. Obviously we need to connect a valve. You'll notice I'm being careful not to connect that without the valve, because it was all too easy for accidents to happen. Right, let's go get the valve. We've got some spares in here. No, we haven't. We used them. Aha, I forgot about that. No, we used them. Right. Pipe valve. Just about got enough iron left to make that. Right, let's get to work. So that's in there and that's turned off. I feel like we should probably do that in pink to warn us that that's hot. Just as a last extra warning before we throw the switch on it, to remember to double check the temperature. Right, and then we'll run the fuel line. I'm sure running the fuel line so close to our hot gas store is, I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Fortunately, I think it will be fine, but I do sometimes set things up on Stationeers and think, this doesn't feel as safe as it could be. But then I guess we should remember we are in space, which is inherently pretty unsafe. Right, rest of this down here. Now, where did that gas mixing line come out? Over here. Okay, so if we run it here, that should be enough distance. I do wonder whether some people are able to just work out exactly where they want to build things without checking, but I'm sure it's probably possible. I'm just not that organised, so it's often easier just to work from both ends towards the middle. Now, we are ultimately going to have more solars across here, so I'm going to run this far before I curve it back, because I think it'll just be easier. And if we do need to connect anything else to this line later, we'll be able to. This is a very long line, so I probably don't want to just leave this like this without a valve or something, because it's going to use an awful lot of time and power to pressurise that. Right, it's all going a bit wrong at the moment, so I'm going to have to take care of my my needs shortly, but before we do, let's just start that going. Power low, to be fair, is only at 50%, but let's change it over now. Let's close that out of the way. We're still at 20% on hydration, so do this for a minute. Right, really need to get more iron into that machine. Oh, nearly. Mid-air delivery failed. Oh dear, look at this. You see, we really are, during the night, we're definitely using more power than we're storing, so I need to start thinking about a second battery as well. However, I'm also going to, whoops, that went very wrong. Also going to turn some of these off, save a bit of power, because I really don't want to run out of power completely. That would be very bad. After all that, we already had that left over there. Just shows why tidying up's probably a good idea, really. Anyway, I'm sure we'll use it later. Right, let's grab some more pipe. I don't know how much more we're going to need. That might even be enough, actually. I'm going to turn that off for a minute. And we'll see how we get on. But you can see we're quite quickly, from the atmosphere processing setup we had, got ourselves into a state where actually quite shortly we'll be able to regulate our furnace and vent it, which means we can start to much more sustainably make alloys. Well, I have a feeling we're going to end up no, we're going to do it. In fact, look at that, in fact we've got too many now. Whoops. There we go. So now let's remove some of the gas that's in there, so just so we can see what is actually in there. So it's mostly carbon dioxide, but there's a bit of nitrogen that will be helpful to recapture and use, and actually there's a bit of unburnt fuel because obviously I had that failed attempt to repressurize it so it would ignite. It's 64 degrees C, so it's still really too hot to use, but let's pump it out. I'm just thinking before we do. It's a bit risky. I don't think there's enough oxygen in there to ignite. I'm going to throw the volatiles in and just melt it. This may go wrong. No, there we go, that's melted that as well. Okay, so now we've got really quite a lot of gas. That's also cooled it down a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the volume pump right up to maximum, and we're just going to turn it on. And that should start to pressurize into here. So you can see the hot gas coming through, and it should empty. And we're not pressure equalizing here, we are vacuuming out the gas that is in the furnace and bringing it through over here. But of course we've got radiators on this, so it should start to cool down. We've got this big tank here to give it plenty of volume so it shouldn't explode. And you can see as it's coming through, the temperature is dropping, which is good. In fact, the temperature is also dropping in the furnace as well as we reduce the pressure. So we'll let that finish cleaning itself out, but in the meantime over here on this pipe you'll see we've got some very cold fuel, and that's good because now we can actually start to control through this pressure regulator on the back side here. We'll be able to pressurize the input pipe, which at the moment you can see is unpressurized. So although there's a tiny bit of gas still in the furnace, there's nothing in there, and that's good news. We'll let this finish emptying completely so that there's no residual heat before we introduce any more gas. And then really the question is how quickly this cools down. So we've only got 4 radiators on this. What I'm going to do longer term is to add a whole bank more, and really just try and get a great big area of cooling going on here. But this is coming down okay. I mean, it's not super fast, but it's definitely cooling down. We can go and get on with some other stuff. And then when we come back, hopefully by then it will be cool enough that we could consider introducing it to the waste gas system. But obviously I don't want to introduce this to the waste gas system now, a couple of reasons. One, what it will do to the average temperature of the gas we're going to pump back into the hab, and 2, there's a lot of unburnt hydrogen in there now, and if I introduce that into the waste gas system, which contains quite a bit of oxygen, if I can get that lined up right, 52% oxygen, at the temperature that I'll be introducing it, those will combust. It will almost certainly blow some pipes up. We'll have gas at probably hundreds of degrees C, and then that's going to go right around the whole system. So if we don't blow up the hab or burn it down, we'll definitely kill anything in it. Anyway, I think before we worry about anything else, we should go inside, check whether it's a sensible temperature for some planting, and have a bite to eat and a drink. Just remembered, and you can see it in the background there, I haven't re-angled that additional solar panel, so it's not doing us any favours at the moment. We need to fix that when we come out. We mustn't be in here too long because the station battery is pretty low now, flashing away red there, and obviously we have a battery in here that will let us out, but I really don't want that to run out. Okay, so it's 13 degrees in here. It's a little bit too cool still, and that's probably still a side effect of this water. It's probably still cooler than we would want. Minus 15 in the ice crusher. It is gradually warming up in here. Let's move that out of the way. I might actually be able to see what I'm doing. Right, so that's 13.73, whereas the room's at 14.11, so that's why it's just still having a slight negative effect, but it's warming up, and it's warming up in here as the sun comes up. It's a bit too cool though for planting still. However, in the meantime, let's unlock helmet, open helmet, food and drink. There we go, and in fact that was the whole of that bottle, so let's do that. There we go, and you can hear them refilling. Oops. There we go. Okay, so let's close the helmet and lock the helmet. I'm going to do a quick flush just because a bit of extra CO2 in here, so it's good for the plants. Okay. There we go. So we haven't really got this quite fully pressurized yet. We're only at 87 kPa and we're obviously targeting about 100. So that's the next thing to think about. But let's go and try and sort out that solar panel because the sun's reasonably high in the sky. The battery's still flashing red, which is not a happy state to be in. Oh, got stuck on the machines. And no, I've done it the wrong way again. There we go. Okay, so hopefully that should start generating some power now. Fingers crossed. I mean, we have got the solid generator that we can use if we need to, but I do prefer to think about that as an emergency rather than as a standard way of working. However, we probably do need to turn on some of these systems. What's the temperature of the gases in these? Right, so there's no nitrogen in there because it's been turned off. That's actually still really cold, that oxygen. Let me flick that on and see what's coming through. Okay, so that's colder than the temperature in the hab, so obviously that is going to have the effect of bringing the temperature down. As it's mixing, we can see there it's coming up at 2.6 degrees, which is quite chilly. Temperature, that's 10 degrees though, so I think if we flick that on, that will help. Let's just have a look at it here. No, it's not really making very much difference at all, is it? Okay, I'm also going to just, while we're turning things on, turn that on and just suck out, because there's a little bit of H2 in there, which always worries me. It's a tiny percentage, a tiny amount, but still better to get rid of it, especially when we're going to introduce some more gas to the system shortly. So in the meantime, let's just quickly check on these. That's at 74% on one of them, 100 on the other. That's at 94 and 79. I'm not sure why some of them seem to be using both. Okay, we've got plenty of life left on those filters. So I think this tank here we'll probably configure in a minute for carbon dioxide. It's probably not something we need tons of here, but nonetheless it's still worth at least being able to get at it if we need to, and we could use it as jetpack fuel. It kind of makes sense to do that. Meanwhile, just so we can check in, our hot gas is down to 45 degrees C, so it's still far too hot to introduce. Anything above 20 I'm not going to throw that lever because there's a risk of combustion, but it's going in the right direction. So let's see if we can speed things along a little with a bit more radiator work. Get the right tools for the job, that would help. There we go, that should help. Right, that's now starting to charge, so we're moving in the right direction, which is always good. And let's see whether or not we can print any more radiators. Yep, we should be fine. In fact, there's a bit more pipe. Right, we may as well use that actually. Didn't really get very much for our money there, did we? But that's got one more piece that we could fit a radiator to. And we'll extend the rest a bit. We'll probably move that tool manufactory later as well. Okay, that's enough for now. Oh, actually we've run out of steel anyway, so it really better be enough, hadn't it? Right. There's probably not even space to fit all of these on here, but that's a good start. Okay, I am actually also going to fit one onto here since we've got some spares, because I want the fuel temperature to remain as low as possible. There's a real risk if that heats up too much. Let's have a look and see how that's going. You see that's coming down reasonably quickly now, so that's good. Okay, so we've got the furnace up and running a little bit more sustainably now. We could actually dial in, a little bit careful with getting the angle right on this. We could actually dial in a little bit of gas in there and turn it on. Let's turn off the volume pump first, otherwise we'll just waste it. So volume pumps use a lot of power. Let's just do that. You see this is nice and cold, what's going in here. If I'll just use that much for now, and then light it, that should ignite, but it's not igniting. So why is it not igniting? Expecting that to absolutely fly up when I hit ignite. I'm wondering whether there's not enough pressure in there to even start the thing going. Probably don't want 105, that's probably a little bit careless. How's that looking now? That really ought to light. There we go, look at that. And in fact, that made more steel perfectly first time, because of course we'd left the coal and the iron in there for when we could get it working again. So there we go. So that's our first sustainably made steel. And obviously now we can make it much more on demand. So that's good, because we've just about run out of steel, so perfect timing. Whilst we've got a hot furnace, I'm going to see whether I can get away with making some solder, which is nice and easy. It's probably almost too hot for that, but actually more importantly I want to see if I can make some electrum, which is going to be super useful for things later on. I haven't even attempted to see whether or not we're at the right temperature and pressure range, so who knows whether this is going to work. No, it's definitely not, because it wasn't even enough to finish melting the gold. Okay, so that was a bit of a fail. Let's put the silver in there, because we already know how hard it is to find silver. Put the rest of that away. Okay, what I should do is then vent out the hot gas. It's going to mess with this. You'll see how hot this ends up now. Actually, well, not too bad. I didn't pressurise it too high, did I? So, okay. And then we'll repressurise it over here. Stuck on the other furnace. Okay, so I'm actually wondering if we've run out of fuel, because the fuel mixer's not on permanently. I suspect we may have. Oh no, there's some in there. That's okay. Just seems to be taking a very long time to pressurise. Let's hit the ignite and see what happens. Nothing. And part of the problem here is that this is such a long run of pipe, so I'm going to put a valve in here just to break up the run of pipe. It's an oddity of the way that the pipe mechanics work in Stationeers, that if you have a very long run of pipe, the speed of pressure regulators in particular, but anything that pumps gas, is affected. So putting a valve, even an open valve, that then breaks that volume of pipe down. Oops, can't get the angle now. Actually solves that. There we go. So we'll just think of it as a safety valve, safety mechanism. And I think what we'll see is this will fill very much faster now. So it is not. Did I turn it on? I did turn it on. Okay, now I'm actually a bit baffled. What have I done? I've done something stupid. Right, there's pressure in there. Oh, I set this to 5, didn't I? That's why. Okay, that was stupid. Probably don't want to go all the way to 100. Let's go to like 50 for now. Turn that off. There we go. Right, that's looking better. And then we light it. Okay. Well, that's at least melted that. Let's see if we can. I mean, 50 is probably far too low, to be honest, but you can see it's already dropping. Temperature's dropping fast. That's stopped melting. It has melted it all in. It's just not enough. Okay. I left the gas on here. It's a bit foolish, but let's vacuum out what's in there. Shouldn't take long because it wasn't very much. Refill it with flammable gas mix, because what's in there is frankly a mess. It's nearly all CO2. It's very hot CO2, but luckily not too much of it, so hopefully that won't have completely reheated this. No, it's fine. It's making it go up a little bit, but not too badly. Okay, go on, pump out faster please. And then hopefully we can start to make a number of other alloys, but electrum is super useful because it's used in lots of more advanced electronics, and one of the things it will allow us to do is to make IC chips, and once we've got IC chips we can actually write some software to control the pressure and venting of the furnace, which means that then we just need to choose what we want to make and throw the right raw materials in, and the software can take care of everything else. Obviously that's a major step forward in being able to just easily make whatever we need, so I'm keen to get to that as quickly as possible. But I'm also keen for this to empty. Come on. There we go, done. Oh, now I can't get around to the controller to turn it off. Right, there we go, let's turn that off, let's turn that on, let's turn that on. Let's repressurize this. And I have no idea whether this mix at this pressure is going to be enough to actually make electrum. Right, it's close enough. If it's not there now, it's probably not going to make too much difference. Let's see what it does. No, that's not hot enough. So that's got the temperature there up to 1,500 degrees, and the pressure's at 2.4. Ah, that did it. There it is. Quickly grab the electrum. Amazing. Right, now I'm going to be a bit cheeky, because as you cool these down, the furnace goes through a stage where it can actually make solder quite easily. So I'm going to just throw some in and just see whether we pass through that temperature and pressure range as it cools itself down, and we might get a 3-second smelt off it. Look at that, perfect, first time. Okay, that's brilliant. So solder and electrum will definitely now allow us to make what we need. So you see how much easier that is than having to throw lumps of ice in there. I'm going to let it just cool down in there because we're not going to use it for a minute. Right, we left that on, so let's turn that off. Let's put those into the electroprint. And what we're going to be doing next time is going to be to make the IC10 chips. So we'll need some steel, but we've got some of that. Let's just chuck that in, shall we? We go. So we're going to make some of these. We are going to need to make an IC editor motherboard. We're going to need to make a computer, and we're going to need to make some, if I can find them on the list, of the housings here. So we've got everything we need to make those now, which is great news. We've got solder, we've got electrum, we've got steel, and we've got the other raw materials. So that's going to be the project for the next stage, because then we can start to do something more sophisticated. We'll build out the gas processor once we've got that going. But I was going to say, otherwise we're going to run out of power. And as I started that thought, we ran out of power. So we'll start that running. And I think we'll finish it there for this video, and we'll come back next time where we will build some IC chips, and we'll start to do some much more advanced automation to allow us to do more sophisticated things like power control, and also to fully automate the furnace. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. We've now got a working furnace, we've got gas processing, we've obviously got food and water, so not too bad going for the end of the 4th hour of the game. So I'm going to save that there, and I will see you on the next video.